Welcome to a Straits Times Sports Podcast special. It is a momentous time for Singapore football. That which many considered close to death has been revived. Like Frankenstein atop his castle as the lightning strikes, surging new energy into that which was found to be lifeless. On Wednesday, March the 21st, the FAS screamed, "It's alive!" as the S.League was transformed into the Singapore Premier League. Cue the screams or cue the derision, depending on which side you fall in that argument. This move comes after 22 seasons of what was known as the S.League. But is this just a case of putting new paint on a rusting ship, or is this a glorious new era for a previously maligned league? I'm Jonathan Roberts, and I'm joined by Wang Meng, ST Sports Correspondent, and Ernest Lewis, Head of Podcasting, both of whom were reporting on the S.League from way back in the 90s when they were with the new paper. Ernest, in fact, was there from the very inception, way back in 1996. So, gentlemen, we now have the Singapore Premier League. Meng, a good move?
Some say that it might be like old wine in a new bottle, and especially, when nothing much was announced apart from the logo and the name. Yeah, we tried asking questions about what kind of community outreach and more information about streaming, but we didn't get much answers. But overall, I think it's good in the way that FAS recognizes that the S-League was dead or dying, and it's time to move on with a new product.
Okay. Ernest, you were there reporting way back in 1996, 22 seasons ago.
Yeah.
You've seen it from the very start.
Yeah.
This is, of course, not the first Premier League that we've had. We had a interim after the Malaysia Cup, I believe.
Yeah.
Which was the
FAS Premier League.
FAS Premier League.
Yeah, I was there at one of the matches, and the national team beat this club, Tiong Bahru, 8-0. And that's what they did, because they were just walking over all the other opponents. And you can't blame them, because they were just buying time before the start of the S-League. And I remember the whole country had this feeling of... it's a bit like deja vu right now, although we kind of know what the S-League is like now. But at that time, we weren't sure whether the S-League was going to be a success or a hit. But it's about the same feeling. I would say right now, in this year, the S-League actually has to be somewhat like the Singapore Patience League, the Singapore Premier League. Maybe it has to be like the Singapore Patience League. And
patience as in waiting rather than patience as in ill.
Yes. Because last time, when it's fledgling league, they had a lot of issues with patience. They want to try new things. So they started throwing in gimmicks. There was inconsistency. They started changing the rules, messing around with that.
Patience is one thing. We're talking about 22 seasons later. I mean, how long do you have to wait for this kind of thing to kick in?
Probably got to wait for a long time.
Well,
beyond our lifetimes. Yeah.
Meng, I mean,
they were patient, and it became a patient. But I mean, joking aside, I think it is still good that they recognize that the S-League, kind of flopped, and there's been a rebirth since the FAS elections last year. And they started off with going back to fundamentals. They relook into governance, which begged the question why it wasn't looked at in the first place. Yeah, I mean, this followed on from the police raids that made so much headlines last year, and now they are looking at the next step, which is like revamping youth football and consequently looking at the S-League.
Yeah, I think the good thing is it's ground zero. So at ground zero, there's hardly any expectations. I mean, we were at the press conference yesterday. I think my colleagues were laughing at me. Why are you there in the first place? But we still got to remember that. I mean, for me, I feel like I remember when we were experiencing the Malaysia Cup high of 93 and 94. I remember reading this 442 magazine, and there it said that Singapore's state of football, what was it like? You have the national team playing in the Malaysian Premier League or the Malaysian League. Can you imagine England playing in the French League? What a joke. So that stuck with me, and it kind of told me that, in the international arena, this thing about kampong football, the Malaysian rivalry, it just doesn't hold much water, especially internationally speaking, you see. We've got to really raise our standards, and you've got to start to have a league anyway. You can't have a country without a national league.
Well, what do you feel about the name? I mean, just on purely a superficial level, the Singapore Premier League.
I mean, I'm quite pragmatic person. I really don't really care what the name is, or Premier League, Best League or Super League or what, or what the logo looks like. A big deal has to be made out of the logo, how the lion's mane is flowing, its mouth is open, to show that it's reborn, it's ferocious, it's passionate. But when you look at the English Premier League, the logo looks like the logo of a bathing ape, but it's really a Premier League. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's the product on the pitch that counts, and I really hope to see a higher standard of football.
Let's look to the future then. I mean, aside from 22 seasons of few high points, the last high point for me as a casual observer would have been Tampines buying Jermaine Pennant. And that was the last glimmer of excitement that we got. That was very short-lived. What can actually be done to... What does the Singapore Premier League need to do?
Okay, I think let's start with the players first. It's never nice to always hear about players behaving unprofessionally. And I thought the FAS was pretty candid with itself by saying that they are aware of the smoking problems amongst players. I mean, where else you're paid to play football? It's a dream for many of us. I'm a failed footballer. That's why I end up writing. Yeah, I mean, it's a dream to be paid to play football, and you have guys smoking, and on top of that, you have the young lions. 12 out of 25 of them smoke. So that's a pretty scary statistic, and especially they're young lions. They're young, below 23, and they're already picking up unhealthy habits.
I mean, picking up from Meng's point, he's really got it spot on, because all this while the S.League has been like a sleepwalking league. Okay, fine. You have a name change, you've got to start from zero. And it might be a good start, start afresh. As he said, try and improve the quality. You've got to improve the youth quality. Foreign talent, I'm not so sure about that. It's a bit iffy from what I saw. Not the same as it was in the early years of the S-League, for sure. They need to work harder on talent scouting, especially overseas. They need to do that, and I think the FAS has to try and find a way to help them talent scout, because if they're just going to stay in Singapore and look in-house, you're not going to go far.
But isn't it also a matter of money? I mean, to paraphrase Scarface, first you get the money, then you get the stars, then you get the crowds. You need a lot more money. So, should Singapore teams be looking for that wealthy benefactor? Should they be looking for their billionaire owner from overseas?
I mean, what I said earlier, it's still the product on the pitch that matters, and if we start playing good football and start producing good footballers, the money will come in naturally. Like, you look at the Thai League, like 15 years ago, they were so far behind us. Their best players were all playing in Singapore. But look at what happened. Now, our national players struggle to get into their second division. And Thai teams are beating J-League and K-League and Australian League teams in the ASEAN Champions League. And 6 Thai players are playing in J-League, if I'm not wrong.
In fact, for me, I feel like let's say from the consumption point of view, you're battling with a lot of entertainment options now these days. So they're going to start with having weekend fixtures at 5:30 p.m., for the Singapore Premier League. I'll be interested to see how that goes. I remember we tried that one of the years in the S-League, and players were complaining of the heat. But you have to factor in some of the lifestyle options of Singaporeans these days. 5:30 might make sense, by the time it finishes, you go for some makan. After that, then if you want to watch some EPL games and all that, it kind of fits in. On a weekday night, it might be difficult to get to the stadium on time to watch the matches. So who knows? Let's see.
Yeah, from what I understand, one of the plans in the pipeline for FAS is they want to engage their local communities more. So you have your SPL matches kicking off in the evening, and before that, you like 2 p.m. you have your local schools playing, and at halftime you have your local school bands performing. And actually, I think that's a fantastic idea. You get the kids interested, and it's always that little spark when they're young. You get them young, and they have that affinity with the S-League clubs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Meng. I mean, a lot of kids, the parents these days actually want to invest in their kids taking proper football lessons on Saturday mornings, early Saturday afternoon. So it's like a family day, right? They can then continue on to the Singapore Premier League games. Yeah,
it's true. And we have Active SG and with their football academy, and now FAS is looking into beefing up primary schools football. I mean, these are all right moves, but at the highest end, it's still a bit lacking. So what I really hope to see from the Premier League this year is players really taking their job seriously. Be a good example to the kids and inspire them.
So, if you get the kids, you should be able to get the families, and that will bring the crowds. But, I mean, of course, to get the kids, one thing that you could say is missing from S.League, or indeed, hopefully not missing from Premier League, are the stars. Any other football league has its stars. So, I mean, who do you think could step up to be... Are there any people who could be groomed to be stars of the new Premier League?
I mean, at the moment, there's a lot of buzz about Fundy's boys, Irfan and Iksan, but I think they're still trying to look for contracts overseas. Yeah, I mean, it's quite unfortunate at the moment because we have a real shortage of star players in the Singapore Premier League, as like our best players are all playing in Malaysia and Thailand. But you just need a couple of stars, and you really spark the imagination of the entire country. Because I remember a couple of years ago, Safwan Baharudin, he played in the A-League, managed to score 2 goals, and he was offered a contract. And I think the entire fraternity was behind him. And right now, 3 of the best Thai players are playing in the J-League. You have Thirasin Dagda, he's scoring for Hiroshima, and Chanatit, he's scoring for Sapporo. And they have a left back, Tiraton. And I saw this clip on YouTube that really excited me. There was a free kick, and he's playing in the same team as Lucas Podolski, who's famous for his left foot. And Podolski told him, please take the free kick. What a moment, man. I mean, can you imagine a Singaporean player like Messi offering him to take the free kick? That would be great.
The other thing that, say, the Premier League, the EPL Premier League has, is, of course, inter-team rivalries. I've always felt that S.League lacked rivalries. There's no kind of like East versus West here. There's no North versus South. Do you feel we need to build at least the friendly rivalries?
Yes, we should. I think I think in the early years, like Ernest would tell you, I think Wenger was pretty good at drumming up the hype, like rousing the fans. But I think sadly it's been missing.
Yeah, we don't have that color. There's that neighborhood color, and the other thing is also the media coverage. Also, maybe the generation of sports writers that came after Meng and myself and all that, they've been exposed to the EPL style of writing. So they come in with their technical analysis of games in the S-League. It doesn't really work when you don't know the players. I mean, at the S-League, it's all about entertainment. You just want to know who punched who, who scolded the ref, who prevented who from jumping into the stadium or out of the stadium or over each other, or who threw water bottles at someone else when they were not supposed to bring bottles into the same place. It's all about the drama, and there's a bit of nonsense, entertainment nonsense, and all this.
Which goes against Meng's point about going back to the basics of football.
No, that's fine. That can happen around the rings, around the fences, the spectator stands and all that. But at least the quality of play is decent that you want to watch. And then you have this color in the stands. Then it's down to the managers, the coaches. They have their rivalries. I miss the days of the press conference where one coach walks in, hey, can you just shut the hell up while I talk and give my press con or something like that, and then they start going off at each other, and then media just has a field day. And all this is missing these days.
The good old days, eh?
Yeah.
I was at a press conference once, and it was interrupted because the kidman came in and said that one of the players got punched in a shower, and after that, the press con took place in a shower. Yeah, good old days. Yeah.
Something for the Premier League to consider there. Maybe more punch-ups in the shower are needed to bring that spark back to Singapore football. And that is where we're going to leave this subject, as the referee of time blows the final whistle on this ST Sports podcast special, which is not easy to say in one sentence. Thank you, Meng. Thank you, Ernest. And despite the jokes, we do actually want the Singapore Premier League to succeed. Football is a great unifier. And like many aspects of Singapore, we want it to be a global success. But if you want to watch the true birth of the Singapore Premier League, or SPL as I think it's likely to become known, it starts on March the 31st with the Community Shield. Meng, who is playing?
It's Tampines versus Albirex, and it will double up as a SPL fixture, so 3 points are at stake.
All right then, thank you for listening. Do check out the other ST podcasts available on straitstimes.com, and do check back for other ST Sports podcasts coming your way very, very soon. Until then, farewell.